time for one of my very favorite things, the levels of biological organization. So as you can see here, we start from really, really small. We start with the little level of the atom. You can even go smaller than that on the subatomic parts, but normally we start here. But if you put a bunch of atoms together, then you get a molecule. If you put a few very specific molecules together, then you get a gene. You put different molecules together in a certain way, you get organelles. And you put all of the organelles together, and now you have a cell. Put a bunch of cells together, you get a layer of tissue, a bunch of tissues, and you get an organ. All of the organs together, they create an organ system. And if you put all of the organ systems together, now you finally have an individual. But if you put a bunch of individuals together, now you have a population of a species. But then you can also look at all of the species that are interacting in the same environment. Some people even like to go higher than this, and you can look at the interaction between species and their environment, and you can look at the entire world. So you see here, we have a lot of different levels of biological organization. And what's interesting here is it really depends on which level you're looking at, what you see. So here, if different, again, these different things happen at different levels. If you're looking at really small, now you're looking at how does acidity change how this protein works. But if you're looking at an entire organism, you don't really care about how acidity changed how that protein works. You're looking at how this individual finds a mate. It's a completely different process on a very different scale that we're talking about. And this sometimes causes people to come up with different conclusions, specifically different conclusions about how evolution works or how the world operates. And in my opinion, some of the fundamental disagreements in biology are due to this because people in different subfields are looking at different levels of organization, so they're simply seeing the world very differently. And another cool thing is no matter what level you look at, each different level of organization has a new and interesting emergent property. Emergent properties are simply something that's more than the sum of its parts. So you can think of traffic. Everybody knows that traffic is a big problem no matter where you are, whether it's car traffic or foot traffic here in New York. Um, but you have to look at the entire pattern to see the traffic pattern. You cannot look at the decision of any one individual and then guess the overall pattern. So that is an emergent property. Well, let's go back here. My favorite emergent property is to look at life. So these first few here, they're not alive. But all of a sudden we get to a cell and we have life. It's alive and we kind of don't know exactly what that is. Like, what is this special thing that causes life to emerge? It's pretty magical. I know this is science, but science can be magical too. But let's look a little bit more at life. There are several key features that are true to all living creatures. All of them grow, they reproduce, they have cells, they metabolize or they eat stuff. Um, they maintain homeostasis, so we need to, maintain kind of, the same working order. We need to have hereditary material, or we need to be able to pass on our characteristics to our offspring or children. And then we also need to respond to stimuli. This looks very different in different organisms. Plants go about their lives very different than we do, but they still do all of these things. And so do single-celled organisms such as yeast. Right at that boundary between life and not life are viruses. So viruses, they don't really eat, well, they don't really do all of that, but they do manage to reproduce by hijacking other cells. So some people like to argue about them, but that's why they're one of our candidates for what we evolved from before life even existed. So this example here is a bacteriophage. They're super cool because they attach to a bacteria and they inject their genetic material in that way, though they do kind of look like this weirdo spider alien thing. Related to the levels of biological organization, it really depends on what level you're looking at. So here we're talking about physical structures. There's another different type of level we can think, and it's how far are we looking back when we're trying to figure out the reason behind something. So the first type is called proximate reasoning. When we're thinking about proximate reasons, these are the most immediate cause to what we're talking about. Think of it as a how or a what question. The other one is ultimate reasoning. So now we're thinking about a really deep cause or the evolutionary cause. And these questions are going to be why. So approximate reason, this is the physiological mechanism, literally how the thing happens. A classic question we talk about here is menopause. So you can, go in and talk about all of the different hormones, how they're changing, when they're changing to cause all these symptoms to occur. But in an ultimate sense, we don't know why. Why did those mechanisms evolve in the first place? And that is a very different question. People are still arguing about that for menopause. So here, the why or the evolutionary why is very, very different from these proximate physiological mechanisms, and we want to make sure that we don't confuse the two.